In a kingdom ruled by vanity, the evil queen's most prized possession was her magic mirror. Every day she would gaze into its depths and ask the same question. Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all? For years, the mirror's answer pleased her, always confirming that she held the title. But one fateful day, the mirror's reflection revealed a new truth. It declared that the fairest in the land was no longer the queen, but her own stepdaughter, the young Princess Snow White, whose beauty was as pure as her heart. Consumed by a furious, dark jealousy, the queen's vanity turned to rage. She summoned her loyal huntsman and gave him a terrible command. Take Snow White deep into the forest. Kill her, and bring back her heart as proof of the deed. Led into the dense woods under the pretense of a walk, Snow White remained unaware of the danger she was in. As the huntsman drew his dagger, he looked upon the innocent princess and found he could not bring himself to harm her. His conscience won over his loyalty to the wicked queen. With a heavy heart, he urged Snow White to run away, to flee deep into the forest and never return to the castle. Terrified, she obeyed, plunging into the shadows of the woods. The trees around her seemed to transform into menacing figures with grasping branches, and every sound made her jump. Lost and alone, she ran until exhaustion finally overcame her, and she collapsed in a heap, weeping in the heart of the forbidding wilderness. Just as despair began to settle in, a glimmer of hope appeared in the darkness. The creatures of the forest, curious rabbits, gentle deer, and cheerful birds, were drawn to her gentle spirit. Sensing her distress, they came to her aid, nudging her forward. These friendly, colorful animals guided the weary princess through the tangled woods, leading her out of the shadows and into a bright, sunny clearing. There, nestled amongst the flowers, stood a small and utterly charming cottage, looking as if it had been plucked from a storybook. It was a beacon of warmth and safety in the vast, intimidating forest, promising refuge from the queen's wrath. Hesitantly, Snow White approached the cottage and knocked, but there was no answer. The door creaked open, and she peeked inside. The home was tiny, with 7 little chairs, 7 little plates, and 7 little cups. But it was also incredibly untidy, with dust everywhere and dishes piled high. Seeing an opportunity to repay the kindness of whoever lived there, she decided to clean the cottage from top to bottom, hoping that its owners would be so pleased that they would let her stay. With the help of her new animal friends, she washed, swept, and tidied until the little house sparkled. Utterly spent from her work, she noticed 7 small beds upstairs and, too tired to choose just one, lay down across them and instantly fell into a deep sleep. As evening fell, the owners of the cottage, 7 dwarfs named Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dopey returned from a long day of work in their diamond mine. They were shocked to find their home lit up and immaculately clean. Cautiously, they crept inside, wondering who could have been there. Their search led them upstairs, where they discovered the beautiful princess asleep on their beds. After a comical and cautious introduction, filled with whispers and curious stares, Snow White awoke. She explained her story, and the dwarfs, charmed by her sweetness and moved by her plight, immediately agreed to let her stay with them, offering her protection from the evil queen. A new, joyful chapter began for Snow White. A montage of happy scenes showed her transforming the dwarfs' lives as much as they had saved hers. She filled their home with laughter and warmth, singing beautiful songs as she baked pies and cooked delicious stews. The dwarfs in turn adored her, their once quiet home now filled with music and joy. She had found a new family in the heart of the forest, a safe haven where her kindness could blossom. For a time, it seemed that she had truly escaped the queen's shadow and could live happily ever after with her 7 new friends.
In a dimly lit home lived a young woman named Cinderella. Her spirit was as kind as the morning sun, yet her days were filled with endless chores and the cruel words of her stepmother and stepsisters. Dressed in rags, she swept the hearth and polished floors, her only companions the small mice who chirped in the walls, and the dreams she held tight in her heart. While her stepfamily reveled in comfort, Cinderella's world was one of soot and sorrow, but through it all, she never lost her capacity for kindness, always treating every creature, big or small, with a gentle hand. She wished not for riches, but for a moment of joy. A single night where she could feel like the person she knew she was inside. One day, a wave of excitement swept through the kingdom. A royal invitation arrived, announcing a grand ball hosted by the prince himself. Every eligible maiden in the land was invited. Cinderella's stepsisters buzzed with delight, planning their gowns and jewels, their laughter echoing cruelly as they reminded Cinderella that a ball was no place for someone in cinders and rags. As they departed in a flurry of silks and perfumes, leaving her behind, Cinderella's brave facade finally crumbled. She fled to the garden, tears streaming down her face, her dreams of the ball turning to dust. It was in this moment of despair that a soft, shimmering light began to glow. With a swirl of magical particles, her fairy godmother appeared, her smile as warm as a summer's day. With a wave of her wand, a pumpkin transformed into a magnificent carriage, the mice into stately horses, and Cinderella's tattered dress into a breathtaking ball gown of starlight and moonbeams. On her feet appeared a pair of delicate glass slippers, sparkling like crystal. "Be home by midnight," the fairy godmother warned, "for that is when the magic will end." The royal palace was a dream of towering spires and dazzling chandeliers, filled with music and laughter. But when Cinderella entered, a hush fell over the crowd. No one recognized the girl from the cinders. They only saw a mysterious princess of unparalleled grace and beauty. The prince was captivated from the moment he saw her. They danced the night away, lost in conversation and the magic of the moment, falling deeply in love under the glittering ballroom lights. But as the grand clock began to chime midnight, Cinderella remembered her godmother's warning. In a panic, she fled from the prince's arms, down the grand staircase and into the night. In her haste, one of her delicate glass slippers was left behind on the marble steps, a single, sparkling clue to her identity. Heartbroken but determined, the prince clutched the glass slipper and vowed to find the woman who had stolen his heart. He traveled throughout the kingdom, commanding that every maiden try on the shoe. It fit no one. Finally, he arrived at Cinderella's home. The stepsisters tried desperately to squeeze their feet into the tiny slipper, but to no avail. Just as the prince was about to leave, Cinderella appeared. Her stepmother tried to dismiss her, but the prince insisted. As she sat down, the glass slipper slid onto her foot perfectly, an undeniable match. At that moment, her rags once more became the beautiful ball gown, and the prince knew he had found his true love. They were reunited in a wave of joy, their love story proving that even from the deepest shadows, a kind heart can find its happily ever after. And so, the girl who once slept by the cinders became a princess, her future as bright and beautiful as her spirit had always been. In a dimly lit home lived a young woman named Cinderella. Her spirit was as kind as the morning sun, yet her days were filled with endless chores and the